appreciate you taking time out of your beautiful day that we're having today to come and get informed on our upcoming referendum we have on May 23rd. Can everyone hear me okay? Because I have this set up and I will definitely turn it on. I don't want it if I don't need to. So if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll turn this on, okay? Okay with that? Alright, so my name is Brent Nelson and I'm going to start off with just the agenda we have for the next hour. And then I'm going to introduce some important people. Here's the agenda for the next hour. I'm going to give a presentation for all of you. And during the presentation, I would love it if you would take this note card on your spot there. If you think of a question that you're wondering, I didn't cover the answer, write down your question. And when I'm done, we're going to do our best. I might have to ask some people that are a lot smarter than me over here to help me answer the question, but I'm going to do my best to answer everyone's question before you leave tonight. So I did this at Freddy's on Wednesday, and it lasted about an hour, the presentation, just so you have an idea. Q&A went another maybe half hour after that. There's a video camera here. Believe me, I don't love that. This is a public meeting, and my hope is that we can inform more people. So if the video turns out all right, you can hear me, we'll try to put something out for people that couldn't be here tonight. There's a sign-in sheet over here. The reason I have this is some of you may have to leave at 8 and you want to hear what all the questions were and what the answers were. If you fill this out, I'll make sure to email you. Just put your name and email, all the questions that were asked tonight with the answers. Last thing, I just want to say this, it's really important to me, is that we're all respectful of each other. I think everyone has different opinions on the school referendum. I guarantee that everyone in this room hates paying taxes, and everyone in this room cares a lot about kids. So let's have some good dialogue. Let's have a good discussion. That's important for a community like this when we make big decisions. But let's be really respectful to each other during that process. And with that, we're going to get into introductions. I wonder, Brandon, would you stand up first?
Yep.
Maybe just share some of this about yourself.
So I'm with Foster Jacobs & Johnson, the construction project manager. We're currently working on the trail view and
I think you have to be louder.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm with Foster Jacobs & Johnson. We're the construction project manager.
Nah. It's not you, it's the noise over here, I think. So. There we go.
All right, can everybody hear me now? Yeah. Great. So I'm Brandon Kellerman with Foster Jacobs & Johnson. We're the construction program manager. We are currently working on the Trailview Elementary project as well as the Wellness Center. I lead our team of construction professionals, of project managers and superintendents. Been doing this for 20 years, construction management directly, and another 5 years as a carpenter in construction.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Greg Crow. I am with Ellers, the school district's financial advisor. I've been dealing with school finance for about 23 years now, 4 years at Ellers, and prior to that, I spent 19 years or so at the House of Representatives as a nonpartisan staffer dealing with school finance. So, enjoying working with schools instead of legislators.
I'm Kurt Norgard. I'm facilities manager here at Mora Schools, and I graduated from Mora back in '77.
Kurt's also worked with some large facilities such as 3M and Myriad. My name is Brent Nelson and I'm the principal at Mora High School. I've been here for 5 years. My family and I are loving Mora. My wife is a teacher at Trailview. I have 3 sons, kindergarten, 2nd grade, and 4th grade. All right, so now I'm going to start the presentation. How did we get here? Is this too loud? No? Okay. I'm used to the school one, I always touch on my chin, so. How did we get here? Why is the school district asking for a new high school? And actually 2 weeks from today, on May 23rd. Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, Mora High School is old. It was built in 1936. The core of the building is 4 stories, and that core was 1936. There were 6 school board members 25 years ago that purchased 141 acres up at the Trailview site, and they had a long-range plan, and that was to have a single campus. None of the current board members were on that board. Were there anyone here that was on that board in the early 90s? No? Okay, so they did that with a plan, and the plan was to offer a safer school, better education, and be more efficient with resources. Since then, since the early 90s, we've continued to have problems at Mora High School. Things like pipes breaking in walls that are this thick and we can't access, such as students getting hit by vehicles on the crosswalk right in front of the school. About 2 years ago, the community, I believe, recognized that we have a problem here in Mora with the high school. The needs are not just going to disappear, and the reason I say that is by how close the vote was. If you remember, there were 2 questions on the ballot. The elementary passed. The high school, we lost it by 52 votes. So I believe that is, people are saying, yes, there's problems. The most recent school board meetings, people are showing up and saying, hey, we need to fix these problems. We're sending our kids there. 2.5 months ago, the school board voted unanimously after weighing the decision. Do we remodel? Do we build new? How do we move forward? How do we fix these things? One thing I want to mention is that the 6 school board members that are currently there, those are different from the ones when I got here 5 years ago. There were 4 different board members then, plus the 6 now. That's 10 people that have weighed this. What should we do? How do we move forward? All 10 to 0, have said, this is the best option. This is the best bang for our buck. This is the best for education. And those are the people that we've all voted for. We put them in those spots to represent our community and our schools. A lot of the slides I have on here, I formatted them as a question that I've received from community members. So, first question, is the entire high school 81 years old? It is not 81 years old. The core is 81 years old. It's been added on a lot of times. Instead of talking about this, I'm going to show you a map so you can see better the different years. Another question that I received is, do we use all the classrooms? The classrooms at the high school are all used. We don't have classrooms sitting empty. We don't have extra space at the high school. We use every single classroom. The wrong direction. Alright, so this is the next 4 slides. The first slide is the basement, and then the second one is second floor, third, and fourth. So you can see this is the boiler room down here in the basement, 1936. This is like the weight room, wrestling room, girls' locker room, health and phy-ed area. Then we have the boys' locker room area over here, 1952. The second floor is kind of gives you a better idea of all the different additions we've had. 7 different years that the building's been added onto. I'm guessing a slide like this probably makes someone like Brandon over here maybe cringe, because every time you add on, you're adding on ductwork and plumbing and electrical and all sorts of things like that. Here's the third floor. I keep hitting up. Alright, so here's our 1977 would be like the media center, the core. This is like our math classrooms on 3rd floor. Over here we have special ed. And then 4th floor, a lot of English classrooms, business. And this is the newest part that you'll see from Maple up on 4th floor. And that would be a lot of our junior high, English, social studies. Can Moore High School be safer? That's a question that I get a lot from parents that are sending their kids there. They've heard about the issues. They want to know, well, is it dangerous? Should I send my kid there? And I obviously want students to come here. I want to be welcoming, but we do have issues, and I can't deny that. We have problems. I'm going to give you a couple quick examples. First of all, we don't have a secure entrance. What does that mean? A new high school today has a secure entrance. You can't just walk in and go anywhere you'd like. For example, if you went up to a modern high school, you don't just get to walk in. Someone at the office decides if you get in. There's an administrative assistant that hits a button, opens the door, then you get into the office. Once you're in the office, they decide if you're going to be able to get into the school or if you're going to be able to get out. You're locked in there. While you're in there, we're doing things like scanning your ID. We want to know, are you a sex offender? Is there a restraining order against you? Things like that. Then we decide, okay, you're good to go. Let's give you your pass and send you on your way. When you walk in Moore High School, you come up the steps. You can go up, you can go down. You're not forced into the office. So that's the reason why a secure entrance is very important. 17 exterior doors. That's a lot of doors. Mr. Baki and I, we worry about safety of students even more than anything else. And when we have 17 doors, students will take things like a pen or a pencil and they'll stick it in the door and they'll leave it there. So we worry about drug dealers and sex offenders and people like that that we've actually had come in our building. A newer school, we're going to have less doors. We're going to have buzzers on them that will let us know right away if a door is propped, things like that. So safety, again, is huge. You're going to notice that theme. A busy street, we're in front of Maple. Every year that I've been here, we've had a student struck by a vehicle. That's 5 years. My superintendent, Craig Schultz, he said he's been here 8 years and he's had a student struck by a vehicle every year. I remember the call I got this year was 7 o'clock at night. We had a young lady after basketball practice crossing right in the crosswalk, hit by a vehicle. Very scary. The students that actually get hit, there's way more close calls. When school's out, Mr. Baki and I, we go outside and we watch the parking lot. And we see those close calls, and that's a scary thing. ADA accessibility. Anybody here go to Mary Poppins? Yeah? All right. So, if you went to Mary Poppins, you saw it was a packed house. Mr. Baki and I, we always have one administrator that supervises these events. And we kind of dread the ones that are in the auditorium. And the reason is we don't have good seating. We don't have a way for people in a walker or people in a wheelchair to get into our building. We see sweet little old grandma comes up to our doors and they open it and they're greeted by steps. And we have to be the ones that say, well, sorry ma'am, we're going to take you all the way out around the building, back by the dumpsters, and bring you in the back door of the high school. From there, we'll walk you all the way back around to the elevator to bring you down, to have you sit probably right in front of the stage. Because we don't have much for seating, we just built an extra spot this year up top. So ADA accessibility, we have students that have those needs every day, but we can't meet those. Asbestos, I'm not going to talk a lot about that. All of you know the harms that come with asbestos. We have it all over the building. I'll pass this around. Feel free to look at how much we have. Here you go. Air quality. Mr. Norgard does a really nice job filtering in outside air. The problem is we don't have a facility where you can monitor. We don't have CO2 monitors all over the building like a new school would. So our students are stuck in classrooms with stuffy air. And if you talk to the students there, they'll tell you that. They'll tell you that we had MCA testing last week, and they're stuck in a room that it doesn't feel like fresh air. We can't monitor that. When Mr. Norgard does that, he does a really nice job, but he has to do it manually. Some of our air exchangers we can only turn on and off. He doesn't have one computer system where he can control the air throughout the whole building. Do we have 36 air handlers? Is it?
34.
34 air handlers. How many of them are outdated?
Well, they're all pretty old, but there's 17 of them that are on the computer.
Okay.
So there's, another 17 or 14 of them that are not,
Okay, so about half of our air handlers we can control with the computer. Otherwise, they're ones that we're going around the building, turning them on and off, things like that. So, let's see, water quality. I'll pass around our lead report. You guys know the impact of lead in drinking water. We've had samplings done. This one that I'm going to pass around was the most recent one. It was about 2 years ago from the Institute for Environmental Assessment. If you have a student at Trailview, I have good news for you. There's 0 lead in the water. Fairview and the high school, that's where the lead is. The cutoff that they use and say is dangerous is 20 parts per billion. And I don't know about you, but I have young kids. I don't want my kids getting any parts per billion of lead in their water. I want them to have 0. But this is the cutoff they use that they say is dangerous is 20 parts. I'll let you peek at that there. Fire sprinklers, our whole building is not sprinkled, just the newer sections are. Just the basement?
Just the basement.
Okay. Supervision, the reason I put that on there is I have a buddy and he's the principal at Pine City and he talks about how he's got this perch. There's one place during passing time, he goes and he stands there. And the reason he stands there is he can see, he says 75–80% of the traffic at Pine City High School. So the students, during passing time, he can see multiple levels. That helps. Students like structure. Students really appreciate when adults are in charge and in control. They feel safer. We don't have that. At Mora High School, we have long hallways. We can stand at an L and we can look down 2, but we can't see the 4 stories. If you're a Phi-Ed teacher, you're responsible for a locker room here, another locker room way down, another boys' locker room down the end of the hall, and the gym's on a different floor on the other end of the building. So think about bullying. Think about students that are sneaky. They don't bully when the teacher's watching. They know when the teacher's not next to you. That's when it's happening. Allowing jackets, that sounds like kind of a goofy one, right? It's very real in our building. Mr. Norgard, I believe I was talking to him about a week ago, and he said almost any given day in the fall and the spring, there's a 20, is it winter too, or?
No, in the fall and the spring it's 20 degrees.
About 20-degree difference between one room and the next room in the fall and the spring at our school. Why is that?
Well, it's just that
Been added on? Or
some parts of the building are more insulated than others, and then the boiler system, some of the air handlers work better than others. In the wintertime, we just pour steam to it.
Okay. So air handlers are outdated. The boiler has issues. The building's been added on a lot of times. We're not able to have a constant temp. We don't have temperature thermostats on every single classroom where we can keep them the same. We can't monitor that. So instead, what we have is manually doing our best to try to keep temperatures similar. So we have to allow students to wear jackets. We don't want to allow students to wear jackets. We want to say no jackets, because when you have jackets, that's not safe. Who knows what students have underneath their jacket? Ventilation, just think about like science classroom, labs. I talked to a teacher 3 or 4 weeks ago and he said he wanted to do this one experiment. He couldn't do it because of the fumes that were released. We have 1 fume hood, we have 6 science teachers, 6 classrooms. Natural light, more and more studies are coming out showing that natural light affects mental health. And if you've been to Moore High School, then you know that we have a lot of classrooms that are interior, without any windows. You know that a lot of our classrooms that have windows, maybe have one or two, and they're this big, and this tall. You go to a new high school, it's amazing how they welcome in the light. And think about us. We live in Minnesota. Those days where we don't get outside, we don't see the light, how that impacts us. Late practices, has anyone here ever had a student that's had late practice? A couple of you? Can I ask, what did your son or daughter do from 3 to 5?
Normally goes to the gym and shoots hoops anyhow, but otherwise she does her homework and...
Okay, good. So we have some students that do their homework and they're going and shoot baskets. That's what we want, right?
That's a lot of good kids.
We also... Oh, we have a lot of good kids. We also staff the media center from 3 to 5 every day because we know we have this problem and we want to provide a safe place. Unfortunately, we have a lot of students that don't always take advantage of that. They go to library and park. They jump in the back seat of cars with their friends and cruise around town. Students traveling for activities. If you have a student who's in sports, you will know that most of our sports practices don't take place at Moore High School. They're traveling up to Trailview. And in the spring, Mr. Baki and I were watching the parking lot and we see students piling into the back of a pickup, or 6 students piling in a car with a young teenage driver. It's scary stuff. And then the last one I have on here is just an FYI. A lot of people don't know this, but we lose over 90,000 gallons of water each year. And this is just with the boiler. I have Mr. Norgard here to help me out with this, but I'm going to do my best, so let me know if I screwed up. The boiler is a closed system. The water that goes out goes around the building and is supposed to come back. Mr. Norgard's been here for about 5 years. He has 3 years of data because his first couple of years he said, well, why are we losing water? The water's not all coming back. He has to have, I think he purchased a gauge and a water meter, and he's keeping track of how much water he's having to add back to the boiler to make up for this difference. And after 3 years of data, how much are we at?
About 280,000 now.
About 280,000 gallons, and that's just the heating season. So that's not counting the other months of the year.
It's just the boiler makeup water.
Boiler makeup water only. And that water is going where, Mr. Norgard?
I don't know. It's under, I can't find a leak in there, so it's underground condensate return lines that are, I think I got an idea that I think it's underneath the auditorium.
Okay. Where's that water going? Is it causing mold? Is it all those things you worry about as a parent? Next slide. Why doesn't the school district fix these problems? I just listed a lot of things that sound like Moore High School is not real safe for our kids. Why don't we just fix them? I want to give a couple examples here. First of all, deferred maintenance, that's the money districts get to keep up their facilities. And deferred maintenance, an example I'm going to give you here is 15 years ago, we got roughly 50 grand to keep up our facilities. Luckily, it's gotten a lot better. The state's been giving us more money. Now, we're closer to $500,000 the district's getting to keep up the facilities. So a district like Mora, we have Fairview, Trailview, the high school, and a bus garage. We have $64 million worth of facilities. The rule of thumb that I've heard, I don't know if you, I think you would agree here, all of you homeowners would agree, that you need 3% of the value each year put into it to keep it up. So if you look at 3% of 64 million, you're talking 2 million each year that we would need. So if you're getting this much from the state, let's say 500,000 year after year, but we need 2 million year after year. We now have these needs that are like this year after year, and we're getting this much money to stay on top of it. The example I wanted to give you was, let's say your home This is actually the average price of a home, or I'm sorry, value of a home in Caneva County. A $100,000 home. Let's take this and figure that out. Let's say you get $500 a year to keep up your home. Can you do that? You might be okay 1 year, maybe 2 years. Eventually, a school that's 81 years old, you're going to have problems on top of problems on top of problems. You need to replace your roof. You need siding. You need your water heater breaks. Things like that happen. You cannot keep up a home for that amount. Do we fix things? Absolutely. We have a list of priorities. Safety is really high for safety for students. Here's some examples of things we've done. So who estimated the Moore High School remodeling cost? Sounds high. You hear 30 million. Where'd that number come from? When I got here 5 years ago, in 2012, we were working with a company called Johnson Controls. And they did an initial assessment. And it's really big. There's a lot more to it than this, too. So that initial assessment was questioned. Taxpayers, community members said, geez, that seems high. Is it really that much? It wasn't 30 million back then, but each year there's inflation, interest rates, construction goes up. So we had other firms look into it. Kraus Anderson, they agreed. They said the remodeling cost that Johnson Controls, that estimate they came up with, they would agree. Donlar out of St. Cloud, they thought it was low actually. They thought it should have been higher. Now we have a fourth firm we're working with, Foster, Jacobs, and Johnson. And they concur. So right now, $30 million is the cost. Has it been looked at by other groups? Absolutely. 4 of them actually. How can it cost $30 million? Remodeling. That doesn't seem right. There's 6 different categories that money would go into. This is what they are. When we're done, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. I see it's already 7:30. When we're done, stick around and we can talk about, if you have questions about the remodeling, and how does this, I can tell you this number's low. Just talking with FJJ, when you think about educational adequacy, $6 million, that says our classrooms, a lot of them are 700 square feet. They're supposed to be 900 square feet. So I don't know how you can take all the rooms at the high school and make them bigger. That's going to cost a ton. Why not renovate? Well, right now the problem is the board's looking at the cost as being the same. The cost to renovate, the cost for new, once the state pays 44%, you have the same amount. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to buy something, if I can fix my old TV, if I can fix it for $200 or I can buy a new one for $200, I buy new. That makes sense to me. Our school board has members that they don't want to waste our tax dollars. I'd be disappointed if they dumped money into something that is just going to keep needing that year after year, dumping more and more money into it. Another reason the board says this is not the best plan is where are we going to educate students? Where will that take place? A project like this is estimated to take 2 years or more, the remodel. It's not something you can just do during the summer. It's not something you can, I think about a few years ago, 2 years ago, we got a new roof put on a section of the high school. It was super stinky. Students complained for weeks. It was super noisy. And that's just a roof. Now let's talk about shutting down some sections of the building, shut down a floor. Where do we send those students? Do we have classes at Kev's Depot? Do we have them in a church basement? Where do we teach students? Another reason is, right now, Brandon, are there some districts that have passed referendums that are using state dollars?
Did you have any of that info?
Yeah, so there's probably in the area, most recent, one of the most recent, one of the largest districts in the metro area is St. Michael Albertville School District. They passed a 6-room building addition to their high school and some other facilities, and collecting state assistance on that. Malacca qualified qualifies for some aid. They're getting a small amount on what they have now, but you know, they need to do some planning and thinking about getting some state aid if they can go ahead and do a project. You know, the Cloquet School District, they added a building in middle school. They got some state assistance for that. So yeah, there are a number of districts.
Thank you.
Yep.
My point is, right now, everyone in this room, you're paying state taxes. Your state tax dollars are in St. Paul, sitting in this pot of money, and the state's encouraging districts like ours to build new when it makes sense. I'll get to that slide in a minute here, when it makes sense. MDE has to review and decide whether or not this makes sense. They say, Maura, it does. The cost of remodeling is way too much. Building new with the state's match is cost the same. Why should we pay for St. Michael Albertville schools? That doesn't feel right. Cloquet, Malacca, all these school districts that are taking advantage of it. Why don't we take advantage of their dollars, the metro area's dollars, and get them to come out here to help build our school? That's another thing that the board is considering. And then if we do renovate, we're still stuck with certain problems. We know we're going to have classrooms that are too small. We're going to have be on a busy street. Students traveling up to Trailview, lack of supervision, natural light. This is a question I've heard a lot. Why can't we just close Maple? Maple is dangerous. Everyone agrees that. Why don't we just shut it down maybe before school, after school, and lunchtime? We can't, is the answer. It's a state trunk highway. It connects 47 and 65. The Minnesota Department of Transportation tells us we can't. We've had, the school district has had a member on the TZD, the Towards Zero Deaths Committee, for the last 10 plus years. And they look at things like, can we have an elevated crosswalk? Can we have a bridge going over the street to keep students safe? And the answer is no, we cannot do those things. For reasons like snow removal. Pushing the snow, you can't have the raised crosswalk for that reason. A lot of semi-trucks traveling. We have had some success. We've tried some things that have worked. I'll tell you right now that before we had 3 crosswalks. That was a mess. We had cars that would try to shoot the gap when there was a gap between students, and then they'd stop for the next crosswalk. We got rid of a couple of them. We funneled students through one crosswalk. We've also have a yellow curb on the south side of Maple. That has helped. Can we get state matching for remodeling? That's a question I hear a lot. The answer is very, very unlikely. A few different reasons. Number one, when you get the state match, it has to be a 20-year bond. The best example I can think of for this is if someone here needs a new vehicle, would you take out a 5-year loan on a vehicle that has 100,000 miles on it? Would you take out a 7-year loan? Probably not, right? You want to make sure the vehicle outlives the life of the bond, the loan. Schools are the same way. And that's why I have Mr. Crow here to help explain that kind of stuff. When we're done here, if you have questions about that, stick around. The Minnesota Department of Ed has to approve it. That's another reason. And Brenda Caselius, our commissioner, she has to look over the review and comment, which is kind of like an application our district fills out. The state says yes, no, or maybe. At Maura, we've heard yes every time. This makes sense. One of the things they look at is the cost of remodeling 60% or more of the cost of building new. In our case, it's the same. Another thing they look at is how do our facilities compare to the school districts around us? Kanabec County and Pine County are very similar. They're poor counties, we all know that. Pine County has 3 school districts: East Central, Hinckley, and Pine City. Kanabec County has 2 school districts, Ogilvie and Maura. Out of those 5, 4 of them have built new schools. 1 of them has not. Lastly, why is it likely this would not ever happen is the voters, all of us, would have to approve this type of bond. So a remodeling for, let's say, 30 million, we would have to vote on that. We did a scientific study 2 years ago after the last election. And phone calls went out to probably some of you. And we asked questions like, what would you support in the future? And only 39% of Warren taxpayers said they would support a remodel project. All right, next question. How big would a new high school be? Here's the current size of the high school we have, 180,000 square feet. New, about the same. A little less, you see. Kind of makes you wonder, well, geez, why would it be less if you're saying classrooms are too small? One of the big reasons it would be less is we would only put one gym in the new high school. A gym is, I'm going to guess, 10,000. You know, our small gym's probably 10,000 square feet. So if you think about that alone. So how was that size determined? Mr. Baki and I, we ran around the building. We counted how many teachers do we have? How many classrooms do we have? We looked at these 2 by 2 foot tiles and we counted how many are there. We got the square footage of all of our classrooms currently. The next thing we did is we looked at Minnesota Department of Education recommendations. A high school is supposed to have a 900 square foot classroom. A lot of ours are 700, or Patty Ennis's is 660. Kevin Knowles, just a hair more. A lot of them are in that 700, that range, 800. They're supposed to be 900. A science lab is supposed to be 1,500 square foot. So we looked at those. Another thing we looked at is, what is the future? What are we going to need 20 years from now? And that's something we don't know. We can't predict the future. But we do know a couple things. We know we're going to have to be able to share space. We know we're going to have to be flexible. Flexible furniture. Tables on wheels. We're going to need electricity. You know, you look in a room like this. There's an outlet. 1, 2, 3. None. 3 outlets in a room like this. Okay? That's kind of like Mora High School. We have a lot of classrooms that have 2 or 3 outlets. Now, students all have devices. Chromebooks, iPads, smartphones, things they need to charge. We're not able to charge those. So there's some things we know that we're going to need. We got input from the people on the front lines, the staff members, the people that are doing it every day, doing the jobs. And one day I just set up shop in one of our conference rooms and I invited anyone who worked at Mora High School to come and see me on their break, on their prep hour, during their lunch, before or after school, and share ideas. And I got a lot of good ideas. I filled a full page of notebook paper. I'll share just 3 of them with you right now. First off, they said we need a middle school model. That doesn't mean a separate school, but they want to have grades 6 through 8, which is very popular across the whole country. You'll see that. And the reason is grades 6 through 8, they're kind of different. They're kind of goofy. They're like different creatures. They're not quite ready to run with the big dogs at the high school, but they're a little too mature for the little elementary students. So in my ideal world, if this was the high school, the middle school would have a part of that building. They wouldn't cross paths with the juniors and seniors, kind of like we do now. Currently, we have a different passing time. We're 5 minutes off. The 7th and 8th grade, they go from class to class after the high school goes from class to class. We have different lunches right now for that exact same reason. As a parent, I think a lot of you appreciate not having them with the big kids. The timing of this could all be perfect. The state, I believe, very soon is going to fund 4-year-old preschool. And when that happens, we are going to need space. And I think about how many classrooms 6th grade takes up at Trailview. 5 classrooms. Thank you, Mr. Quall. If we were to move 6th grade into a middle school model at the high school, that would free up space for 4-year-old preschool. Another idea they came up with is a career and tech ed center. And the longer I've lived in Mora, the more I feel like our community, we value the trades. We value the blue-collar type jobs. After talking with these teachers, the wood shop teacher, metals, welding, they came to me and said, we want more space. We don't need a fancy room that's 900 square feet. We need a cheaper built room that's way bigger. The example I'll give you is, if you're Mr. Strandy, you have an auto shop that you can fit 6 cars in. It's very tight fit for 6 cars. And maybe you have, well, 20. What if you have 20 students? Think about how many students are working on a car. If we build a building that has a part of it that's built cheaper, let's say instead of, I'll just throw out a number, instead of $300 a square foot, let's say we build it $200 a square foot. Now all of a sudden Mr. Strandy can fit 10 cars in there. Those teachers, they all want more space. So a career and tech ed center, the pendulum is swinging back and forth. I think about when I was in Alexandria, about 8 years ago, the push was every student's going to college. Every student, we have to get them ready for college. We all know that's not going to happen. Not every student is cut out for that. Now it's swinging back the other way. A career and tech ed center would be a nice thing for our community, and I believe it's valued by a lot of our members. Area Learning Center, this is something I love that we have an Area Learning Center in Mora. I love that it's close because our students can take advantage of that. We have students that do mainstream classes and ALC classes. I don't love that the ALC is right smack dab in the middle of our school. And if you ask the ALC director, they'll tell you the same thing. They'd like to be, I talked about how a middle school wouldn't be a separate building. I envision the ALC being its own separate wing too. Maybe they have their own entrance. They come and go there. They're not right in our school. In the crossing, walking the halls. They would benefit and we would benefit from having their own space. Community input. After getting staff input, we thought it was really important to take a field trip. We headed up to Hermantown and looked at a high school that I believe was built for 700 students. So very, very similar to Mora. Very close by. And when we walked through Hermantown, I had a group of 18 and I asked them to take notes. Write down things we need. Write down things we definitely don't want in Mora. And let's talk about it. And one of the things that stood out to me is we don't need the bling. I heard that from someone, and then other people started nodding their heads. Yeah, we don't need the bling. Mora we want it built well. We want it built to last. We want to have space that is very functional. We don't need the flashy bling. When I say bling, let me give you an example of what people were referring to. Has anyone here been to Hermantown High School? Just opened this year, so very new. This year or last year? This year. When you walk in Hermantown High School, they have these 2-story open-air atriums throughout the building. That felt like wasted space. That felt like bling, stuff that we didn't need. Another thing that was commented on a lot is, whoa, we don't have a commons. When people show up to our basketball games, when they walk out the door of Mary Poppins, they're in a hallway. Where do you congregate? Where do you gather? Where do you welcome the Foley fans are coming to Mora? Where does that take place, that gathering place? We share that space too. That would be a lunchroom as well. So a commons is brought up. Those of you who go to a lot of other schools, you see that. Right now, our students, they sit on dirty steps while they wait for their parents to pick them up after practice. Because we don't have a common space for them. Natural light. That was also in the top 3 that I heard from community members. Wow, we didn't realize how dark and dingy Mora High School is. We didn't realize when you walk down the hall, there's 0 natural light. New schools find ways of welcome. You guys build them well now. They welcome in the light. From the hallways to the classrooms, from the ceiling. And other things, auditorium, competition gym. People said, we don't need an auditorium that's this huge. We want a really nice one. We want great sound, great lighting, comfortable seats. How is the total cost determined? Now, this is one that I would defer to Brandon on. Tell me if I'm wrong here. If we build a high school on the Canadian border or on the Iowa border, we know it's going to cost about a certain amount. It's almost the exact same. I just mentioned before, 4 different construction firms all agreed how much it would cost to remodel Mora High School. They're the same way. They do this all over. This is their jobs. We don't need to get a blueprint, figure it out exactly, and then go to the voters, because we know. We can use the square footage, which I just mentioned before and how we got there, and we know that that's going to equal, that's how the number 52.2 million was decided. How'd I do, Brandon?
You did great.
Okay. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it.
Can we tax you more than 52.2 million? Absolutely not. We can't. And I have a slide coming up on that, I think. Why would we only have to pay 29? You probably have heard that, 29 million. Why do we only have to pay that locally? That's because we're already paying for the Trailview expansion project. The state is saying, whoa, our community is already paying a lot. All of you in this room, you're paying those taxes. We're feeling that impact. So because of it, there's this thing called state equalization aid. 1993. It's been around for a long time. Districts. This is a question we got at Freddy's on Wednesday. Is that money guaranteed? Are we sure we're going to get that money from the state? Can I throw that one at you right now, Greg?
Sure. Yeah, that's a common question. Whenever we have a project in a school district that qualifies for it. And, obviously with the legislature, nothing is guaranteed, but we can look at that history since 1993. The program's been around for that long of a time, and it's never been cut. Even in the time 10 years ago when the state had a $5 billion deficit, they didn't reduce that money. All that's happened over that time is the program has been enhanced. The funding's been increased, the factors have been improved to help more districts qualify for more revenue. The most recent couple of changes that will help the districts that qualify for this, one is that it was made into an open and standing appropriation. That's kind of jargony, but what it means is the statute says this money is available for any school district that qualifies for it, even if the legislature doesn't meet. So if there's a government shutdown, if they can't get their business together, school districts still collect those payments, and the reason for that is they are obligated for long-term bond payments. So the legislature knows that those monies have been committed ahead of time, and they need to honor that commitment. The other part of it is that they did what's called indexing, and I won't get into the details of the numbers, but the mechanics of it are that as a school district grows in value, the state compares your growth in value to what the state average grew in value and adjusts the aid accordingly. So in the past, when a school district would grow in value, sometimes that percentage would decrease. But now, if you grow at the same rate that the state grows, that percentage that we talk about getting stays the same. And if you grow slower than the state in terms of property value, and we know that most of the growth is happening in the 7-county metro area, you could actually end up with more money as a percent that we talk about. So it's a good program. With the changes that have been made, there's 130 school districts that actually technically qualify for it. Now you have to have debt, you have to have your voters approve something, and not all of those districts have done that. But that constituency also creates a lot of momentum that helps prevent that being a target of future reduction. So all of those things are important.
Thank you. The number you're going to see on the ballot is 52.2 million. The local impact will be 29.2 million. Does that make sense? The state will cover 44%. How does this affect individuals in Mora? Well, when the district called the county to find out what's the average home value in Mora, we heard that the average home value is $100,000. So for that average person, it's $18 a month, $212 a year, 58 cents a day. How will it affect our local businesses? 2 examples here. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of impact. You think of a place like Kev's. They're trying to make it. They just opened. I don't know where they fall in here, but they're going to have to make more sales. They're going to feel it. There's definitely no easy. There's nothing easy about this. One thing about the businesses is they're not taxed on their profit. It's taxed on their property value. So $7.50 a day, $121 a day, they're going to feel it. What if the bids come in low? What if the bids come in high? That's a question we've heard a lot. The Trailview expansion project, the bids actually came in low. That was a good thing. What happens if they come in low? The school board can do a couple different things. They can decide, we're going to reduce the bonds. We're going to charge less from the community. Okay? Or they can decide, we want to enhance education. We want to do some of these little extra things to make education better for our kids. There's a list called the Add Alternatives. Is that Add Alternatives? Is that right?
Alternates, yep.
Okay. Can you explain what that list is?
Yeah, when you bid it out, there's a base bid for the main project, and then if there's some items that we've determined over the course of design to be, let's see where they come in at and see if we can afford it. So there'll be multiple bids for different pieces of the project, and you can choose to either do that portion of the project or not do it. And that's a school board decision.
Thank you. What if the bids come in over? What if we think it's going to be 52 million, ends up being 55 million? Then the school board, we make the tough decisions. The people that are designing it and planning it, we have to decide what gets cut. We can't tax the community more than what the number you see on the ballot. You know, when this is done, I'd love to give some examples of, at Trailview, what did we do when the bids came in low? School taxes, where are our taxes going? So this was just from the most recent year, 2016. Your taxes are going, the bigger chunk, a little over half is going toward the county. And then about a quarter or so, city and school. More schools, the district, where did they get money from? This is a question, I feel like I'm right in your way all the time, I'm sorry. We get money from 3 places. Most of it is the state. Locally 12%, federally 5%. The purpose of this is informational. I want to get information out to you, and this is something that my wife and I didn't realize. We've owned a home for 4 years in Mora, and our first couple of years in Mora, we didn't ever think about applying for something like this because we didn't know about it. Or if we knew about it, we didn't think we qualified. This last year, we filled this out when we did our taxes. We got a really nice check. I hope that you guys take advantage of these things. The aid to school tax credit. This is something in St. Paul right now. I should just pass this around. If anyone here has any connections with Tony Laurie or Representative Jason Merrick, I would encourage you to contact them and tell them how important this is. This right now is in the governor's proposed bill. It is supported both by the Democrats and the Republicans, by the House and the Senate. So it looks like it's going to be a slam dunk. What it will do is it's a 40% tax credit for landowners, farmers, people that have agricultural land. One nice thing about it is it's not just going to help out landowners with, let's say, a new high school if this were to pass. It also will help them out with the Trailview expansion project, things that we're already paying for. Now this picture here, all of you have in front of you, I put a couple pieces of paper out. I wanted you to take these with you so you had some information. This does not represent what Mora High School, if it passes, this is not what it's going to look like. All this does is it shows you square footage bubbles. It shows you that the space we need to build a high school right for the needs we have, it shows that it's going to fit on the property. Another thing it shows is where it would tie in, where it would connect with the rest of our school. Here's the current Trailview. The gym we have right now at Trailview is right here. This is the new gym that is just about done at Trailview. This, the groundbreaking, I believe, is Thursday for the Wellness Center. That will tie into these gyms. We want a high school to attach to that. That's going to allow for a lot of efficiencies. You think about busing, shared staff. Right now, we have to pay staff travel time. Think about food service, parents dropping off kids. There's a lot of benefits to having a connection there. These are really hard to see, but we want to make sure we do this right. We want to have a gym close to the gym. So when you have a Saturday morning girls basketball tournament, all of a sudden we have access to 2 gyms here, 4 here, 1 here. Shut off the rest of the buildings. Keep the public out of the academic wings. A commons. We want to make sure that when you walk out of the play or the musical, that you're coming into a commons. When you walk out of the wrestling match, the volleyball game, you're coming into the commons. The big green box is 2 stories. This is the academic classrooms. All of this is 1 story. So here's a picture you have in front of you. This just shows, there's 2 examples here. One shows the high school coming off and going to the west. One has it going to the north. You have, the one in front of you has it going to the north. If it was west, this is what it would look like. Kind of changes where the bus drop-off is. We don't want the little kids, the itty-bitties, getting on the bus, getting off the bus, the same place the high schoolers are. That's really important that we have that different. Here's elementary bus drop-off. Here's high school bus drop-off. I kind of mentioned this already, but why 1 campus? Number 1, by far, is safety. After-school activities, the students traveling, green space. I think about our science teachers at the high school. I think about our agriculture teachers at the high school. How nice to be able to walk out the door and have a school forest right in your back door. 141 acres. When I moved here, I learned that Moore had 2 school forests. And I knew about the one off 65 north of town, but I didn't know that we had as much land as we actually do at Trailview. There's a lot of neat, hands-on, real-world stuff that can happen right there on that property. And then efficiencies. Right now, is anyone doing the 3-school drop-off with their kids?
Not anymore.
Okay. I guess I do. I drop a couple kids off at Fairview, then 1 at Trailview, and then I work at the high school. But I know a lot of parents that are hitting all 3 spots. So busing, staffing, food service, there's a lot of money that can be saved when we have a single campus. The timeline, a school, 180,000 square feet. How long does that take? When would the doors open? The answer is about 3 years. A school this size takes about 1 year to plan and approximately 2 years to build. So we'd be looking at the fall of 2020. If it included 6th grade, it would be our current 2nd through 8th graders that would be the 6th through 12th graders at the school in 3 years. If it doesn't, it'd be 3rd. Just to give you an idea of who would be in that building. If this passes in 2 weeks, who would design it? The answer is we have an architect right now, Wold, that would oversee the design process. We would have user groups. I am hoping I will be a big part of that, and I can help organize the user groups. I want to make sure we have community members involved. I want students involved. I want senior citizens, parents, people that are on the front lines. And just to give you an idea of some user groups, here's some examples. Science. Science is kind of unique. We're going to have science teachers really help with that space. We're going to take a field trip. We're going We're going to go look at auditoriums. If you're into arts, I might need you. I might need your advice. We're going to go look at maybe 4 schools in one day and come back and decide what's most important. We're going to do that with the architects. All right, wow, I was right on. 8 o'clock, all right, referendum details. 2 weeks from today, Tuesday the 23rd, Morris Civic Center. We're open as early as we can be and as late as we can be. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If it's a nice day, we'll have a spot for right at the park there when you pull in. On the left, Lions Park for childcare. Early voting's been going on for quite some time in the district office hours from 8 to 4:30. So if you know you're not able to vote, please stop in the district office and vote ahead of time. One reason I really wanted to put my card on your spots is so that when you leave here and you have a question, if you're like me at 2 a.m. you're going to think of something, or tomorrow, or your neighbor has a question, please call me, please email me, let me know your questions. I want everyone here to feel informed. It's a big decision. It's a lot of money. Our kids are really darn important. So please think about that when you make this decision. Get informed. All right, so what I would love is maybe take like a 3-minute stretch break. If you have a question, if you could, would you mind collecting them?